we'll get going. I suppose, listen, thanks everybody for coming on. This is our first go at this, so it's kind of a little bit rough and ready, I suppose, for this evening. But given the way the weather is, and given that there's probably a lot of work to do out there and things like that, we decided that maybe it might be no harm to have some sort of webinar like this that people could just log into in their own time, in their own comfort, in their own home, rather than having to hop into a car and drive around the place, especially when there's work done. But as you can see this evening, there's probably not a whole lot going on anyway. But so ourselves, myself and John and Eoin, decided that we'd run a quick webinar here just to talk about some of the issues that are out there at the moment, mainly in winter wheat and winter barley. It's an interactive forum. We're going to ask you all to stay on mute for reasons in terms of sound, because when people unmute and things like this, you hear dogs barking in the background and you hear all sorts going on in the background. So if you have a question to ask, there is a chat function at the bottom of your screen. Throw a question into that, or if you can't use that, just fire a WhatsApp into either Eoin or John, and they'll be able to bring the question forward to the conversation. So the way we're going to work this is we're going to have a couple of videos. We're going to show a couple of short videos and some crops that we've been in the last couple of days. John is going to talk through his one. The sound wasn't great the day he was recorded. There was a lot of wind, so he's going to narrate what he saw in the crop. Each of the videos are only about half a minute, maybe quarter of a minute each. And you can see then, and we'll open the floor to questions then, and we'll have a conversation here among ourselves. And at that stage, I'd ask you then to start throwing in your questions into them, and we'll try and answer them as best we possibly can. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up the first video here. So John, we're going to go with your video first. And I'll share this here now.
Winter wheat?
No, winter barley.
Winter barley, okay.
Winter barley, so we'll go with the winter barley first. And we'll share your winter barley video here from Naas, and you can talk us through what we're seeing on the screen.
Yep, thanks, Shay. So the variety is Arcade, and the crop is very forward at the moment. It's probably at growth stage 32 to 37, like on the stronger plants. The flag leaf is starting to come out. It's a very thick crop, as you can see, and it's a crop that's going to need another growth regulator at flag leaf stage. It has its T1 there very recently, and the crop at the minute is very clean with very little to no disease on the crop. I don't see any pressure at all. Even BYDV pressure is low on this crop, even though we have seen BYDV maybe in other crops. So as you can see there from some of the plants, you can see maybe the flag leaf is appearing there on some of the stronger plants. Yes, you can see overall, you can see the crop is very thick across the field. So it's a very even stand in that field.
Oh, it's a very, very, very clean crop. So that's John's one here. I'm going to pull up the other ones here now. Myself and Eoin did one each. And there is a bit of commentary on these, so I'll just try and match this up here as best I can. Just bear with me here for a second. That's a wrong misedit there actually in that one. So this is
winter barley, which is sown on the 10th of October after winter wheat. This crop has received its full nitrogen application as of last week and is currently sitting on 175 units of nitrogen per acre. The crop received its T1 fungicide application on the 28th of March, and if we look back down at the canopy, we can see that it is extremely clean from disease, and the T1 has worked quite well. On the same day as it received its T1, it also received a PGR application of Cycocel and Modus, and if we examine this plant, we can see that the stems on the plant are extremely equal in size, which is exactly the target of what we want to do with our PGR at that timing. The growth stage of this plant, if we look at the stem here, we can see that we have one leaf that's a needle in size at the moment and is currently emerging. And if we have a look at a plant that has been dissected here, we can see that leaf is in fact the flag leaf. As you can see, the head is coming right behind it, okay? So this crop is progressing very well. Some crops won't be as far on as this, There is other crops and other varieties that are only maybe heading for growth stage 32, but in relation to this crop, the flag leaf is just emerging. So our next action here is to look at topping up our PGR program and also looking ahead to our T2 application.
Okay, so I'm in Oak Park here in the Bull Park, looking at our one of our winter barley plots. So this is a crop of cassia, just been recently brought up to 180 kilos of nitrogen. That's the max we can use here in Oak Park, and has got all its weeds control up here to date. A bit of groundsel that's coming in late in it, but that's just have to be in control. So you can see them starting to bend over here. But the one thing I suppose just wanted to highlight here is the amount of BYDV that's after coming into this plot. Now this did get an insecticide early or at the end of last season, around the end of October, but quite a bit of BYDV in it here, and I suppose it's no surprise. We're here beside the BYDV plots, so we're looking at some of the BYDV in the different varieties here. So you can see quite clearly here that there is quite a bit of a BYDV out there, and that's what we're hearing. The other thing I suppose, looking at this crop here, it's the second last leaf is just coming out in it here. So you look at some of these leaves here, this is the second last leaf here, and the flag leaf is inside that. So yeah, it's going to be probably about the 10th or 12th of May before the awns come out in this crop. So that just gives you a flavour of what we're seeing out there across the different areas, if you like. So just to give a flavour, guys, I suppose, John, if I start with you, if we talk about nitrogen, we see that crop in Oak Park there. It really only got its last nitrogen yesterday. Is everybody up to date with nitrogen on the crops at the moment, do you think?
For barley, definitely, yeah, lads are up to date on it. I'd say most barley probably has got their full allocation of nitrogen at this stage, yeah.
And even some of the crops are probably later, though they're probably still need to get them on. Would that be fair to say?
It would be, sure, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, what crops are what? Round about growth says 31, 32. When should, if fellas haven't got it done yet, when should they have it done by?
And look, I'd be getting them done as soon as possible, Shay.
So don't delay is the message on it if you haven't got it on now.
I think don't delay, like crops are going to move on there in the next week if we get a bit of heat.
Yeah, it's interesting because I saw a year like this a couple of years ago, and I saw a guy going with fertilizer on barley in May, just after it headed out. So it's kind of, way too late then at that. Eoin, if I turn to you, is the same question with you? Is everybody up to date in your area with their nitrogen on the crops?
There's a big difference amongst varieties when you head down to maybe around Laois or South Kildare where I am. Like, you have a variety like the Arcade that I was in there, or a Joyu, and look, they're going to be maturing that bit earlier. Like, if you think of them varieties in different years, like you could have been on emergence there or putting on your final spray towards the end of April even, so
Yeah.
in relation to nitrogen and them crops, it has been well done. But I was just looking at cassia yesterday there now, and similar to what the crop you had there in Oak Park, like, it's not had growth stage 32 yet. So, nitrogen on a crop like that hasn't been finished off yet. But sure, look, as John said, like, it looks like next week is going to be a nice week, so it could start moving. So nitrogen is priority on that, but there is a big difference amongst varieties, and we have seen that the past few years,
I'm going to throw a question to the both of you, and I hadn't planned this one before, but in terms of the first nitrogen that guys went on with this year, do you think, or are you seeing a difference out there depending on how early the first, or say the compound fertilizer went out? If guys went on in February, are they better than the guys that went out in March? What do you think?
I think a lot of people had plans to go early, like, we saw that last year. If nitrogen was delayed that bit, that kind of maybe 30, 40 units that was going on with the compound, it may have had an impact on tiller and later on, like, they're just getting that crop up and going. But it didn't really happen for a lot of people this year, just given the way that the weather was. Just land wasn't travelable really, like, but the crops that did get it, they do look maybe that bit thicker,
Yeah, it's the same up with you, John, around Naas, it's the same sort of story. You're kind of slightly heavier ground up there than it would be around, say, around the Thai or South Laois or anything like that.
Yeah, no, look, I'd agree with that. Like, any crops that got nitrogen early are looking stronger. Maybe less tillers were lost maybe with the earlier nitrogen getting out on the crops. But I suppose maybe the ground being heavier up this way, maybe a lot of crops probably didn't get their first nitrogen into March at the time because ground was just too wet, the lads couldn't travel. And I'd say maybe
Yeah.
we are seeing thinner crops this year maybe than last year. To me,
And do you
some of it
think
might
is
be.
that already having an impact on yield potential, should I say?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Like I mean, like some crops there have great yield potential, but some of the thinner crops you just know they won't because you're not going to have the heads per meter squared to give you that yield. And the thing
Yeah.
is,
Now
it's
your
the heads per
crop,
meter.
your crop in this is similar to what Owens was there. It seemed to be very, very thick. Did they get early nitrogen on that? They did.
Yeah, yeah, that would have got early nitrogen. Yeah.
And I suppose on those two crops and yours as well, they're finished now with nitrogen. Everything is on those, are they?
Yeah, finish with nitrogen probably a small bit later than what we would have liked, really. Given like we can see the flag leaf is coming out in that now. Nitrogen was finished on that last week, so probably was up against 32, growth stage 32 were a bit with it, like But again, it's just trying to get out into fields. Like I know a good few people have commented to me that that the first split of nitrogen went on barley. It was easier to get it on than the final split. Tractors coming in and they just covered in muck and stuff like that land is
Yeah.
that bit wetter, so it is an issue. But also, I think that early growth regulation has stood to that particular crop that we're looking at as well. That it seems to be them varieties, especially as it go back to the Arcade or a Jayu that are maturing that bit earlier during the season. You kind of do have to get out and get maybe something like a Cyclid or Modus on just to try and build them tillers and to get an even tiller base across each plant. Which, look, it is difficult when you have this year you had such wet conditions. But if you cast back to last year, it was you had them huge differences between day and night time, and
Uh,
even you can see the tipping even on leaves this year as well. Like so,
and do you think is that I won't say a penalty, but is it a slight disadvantage for the likes of Joy U and Arcade and those earlier varieties that they are nearly forcing you out that bit earlier than what you would normally expect to be with the likes of Nitrogen or PGRs?
they definitely are. They definitely are. There's no doubt about that. Like, and you even see people that might have, say, they might have Cassia and Jayu on the one farm, and you're trying to obviously time your spraying or your fertilizer to do it around the same time. But it's just you might be going too late to match the Cassia and you're missing your time in the Jayu or vice versa. So it's something that if you are picking, especially it seems to be them BYDV tolerant varieties, they are maturing that bit earlier. So if you are picking one of them and you have a different variety on the farm as well, just be mindful of that it is going to develop at different stages.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And you both of you mentioned that there's PGR has gone on. John, you've got PGR on that crop up in Naas, CCC and
Yeah.
Modus, I presume, or something like that,
The
is it?
CC and Mold has gone out on that already, yeah. So that was gone early, and I suppose you can see that working hard on the crop. Now that crop there is a very thick crop, but there's another crop, another field behind it, and you can really see the PGR working on that. Like it's not maybe standing up straight, but you can really see the crop tillering out from the growth regulator. Like I mean, there's a lots of tillers there. Like yeah.
And I suppose given the work that had to be done in April this year, did you see much scorching of crops where guys had to go on with say PGRs, growth regulators, wild oats, all that type of thing? Was there any evidence of that around, do you think?
Yeah, I would have seen evidence of that there was some scorch in places, all right. Like I mean, and I'd say that was probably down to weather conditions, and we did have cold weather, like while we now had frosts. Do you mean we had a good wind chill there as well, and cold nights, and
Yeah, yeah.
maybe it depends then maybe on what mixes went into the tank mix as well. At the time, do you mean if it was a hot mix with maybe a few other ingredients? Do you mean it definitely did have put pressure on crops?
Yeah, for sure. And on any issues then with you with some of those complicated mixes that guys were kind of almost forced to go with, given the amount of work they had to do.
You were forced into it. Unfortunately, like again, I think people were planning maybe getting out earlier with say trace element and you're getting your axial on for your wild oats as well, and it just didn't happen. So like you were looking at maybe PGR going with your axial or following it not too far behind as well. So you were putting a lot of stress on the crop during what wasn't great growing conditions either. You have to take that into account too that there hasn't been that good weather for growth. So like it is becoming evident there now. You can see the tipping on the leaves in my area anyway, but I don't think it's going to have much an effect once you get this bit of growth. I think it'll grow on out, but it'll be fine.
And while you have the stage now, as the fella says, where are people at now, do you think, in terms of growth regulator now? Is there a lot of demand or a lot of push to go with growth regulators in the next week or 10 days, do you think?
Yeah, look, I think it depends on your situation. Like if you go back to the crop there that I had in the video, like it's a crop sitting on 175 units, so it is a strong nitrogen rate has gone on it for winter barley. It is after wheat, I suppose, so that lowers the risk. But like in a crop like that, you are looking at going following up with a second PGR. So the plan there would be something like Turple, and that'll be a job for next week, really. You won't feel the awns appearing on a crop like that, and that your timing is gone from then. I don't think it needs a huge rate of turple, which are probably in around a litre to hectare on that. And maybe something like a cassia that you had, Shay, in Oak Park. You know, crops like that maybe on lesser nitrogen, maybe on sitting on 150 units or something like that. So some of the 2-row varieties that aren't on strong nitrogen, maybe not after a break crop. Potentially there, like you could admit that PGR altogether, provided you've got maybe your cycocell modus on already. But it's not. I don't think it's a blanket thing that a second PGR is totally necessary there.
Yeah. And I suppose, John, similar question too. I suppose guys are going with PGRs probably next week up in Naas. A question, I was at a walk in Carlow last night, and there was a debate for almost half an hour about, do I put a fungicide with it or not? What's your thoughts on that up your neck of the woods?
Yeah, I suppose with just the crop we're looking at there, like it is an advanced crop, so we are looking at the growth regulator, as you say, next week. But it's only recently got its T1, so like you're coming in there within maybe just at the 2 to 3 week period, or sorry, the 2 weeks period of that. No more than that, more than the 2 weeks. With a PGR, like, so you still have time to go on it. I think that crop actually it was a week ago since it was sprayed. And my concern is if you put in a fungicide now with the PGR, you're not going to leave yourself too late when the awns come out. To mean that you
Oh,
might say, right, sure, do you
yeah,
know
go
that
on,
you're
no,
going
go
to,
stay going,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that you're, do you know that, when the awns come out, maybe it's going to be another week's time, and you might decide then once you have a fungicide gone on, you're going to say, well, sure, look, I'll leave it for another 2 to 3 weeks. And at that stage, you're going to miss your timing at the awns peeping to get out your fungicide. That's my
Yeah.
concern with that. Like, I mean, so you are going to overshoot and miss your T2 timing as such then at that stage. So, like, I think
Oh,
in this scenario, I'd be just doing the growth regulator and coming back in then when the awns are peeping, then at that stage to do the proper T2.
Owen, I know you're Kilkenny, man. What's the story in Kilkenny? Are guys, there's some talk down that negative was guys are going rather than 2 spray program, a 3 spray program. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think it all depends where your T1 landed. Like, some T1s only went on last week, and if we do get this burst of growth now that hopefully we get next week with improved weather, now your interval there between your T1, let's call it, and your ONS emergence spray, your paintbrush stage, that mightn't be that big of a gap. Like, so you might be all right. But there are some crops, that did get the T1 in late March. So I suppose you are asking a lot maybe of a fungicide running all the way from 25th, 26th of March, all the way up to the first week of May for a final spray. So you might have to think about something maybe in between. I suppose if you are going back with Turple, that's your timing to get in because you're going through the crop anyway. So, but like barley crops around, they're quite clean.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose the thing I suppose people are thinking about, and again, it's because I suppose it's gone so cheap. A lot of people are thinking of going just with a bit of proline or something like that, or prothioconazole. Is that what you're kind of thinking at that kind of with the turple?
Yeah, well, look at that. That's gone a very popular option. Is to just go with it on its own. A half rate of some sort of protio based product is coming in very cheap. But I suppose we do have to think about from a resistance point of view. And there's an awful lot of protio being used in every product, especially on barley that we're using now. And we do have to be mindful that the more we use it, and especially at lower rates, the potential for resistance is going to build up, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think it's a valid point because earlier on there this year, Bayer, who are the license holder for prothioconazole, they did make a point that they are seeing some level of change in resistance status to net blotch in with proline. So it's just something that's supposed to keep an eye on that. You don't want, as you said, don't want to expose it too much. If we go back to one of the things that I'm seeing quite a bit of, and I saw it in Oak Park, and that's why I kind of shot the video in Oak Park, is the BYDV story. There's a lot of BYDV out there at the moment, and I just see a question here from Adam about jaw U and symptoms in jaw U. Any comment on the tolerant varieties, lads, in terms of what, do you see symptoms in them? Would you be worried about them? Will they affect yield?
Yeah, I'm seeing, yeah, well, definitely I'm seeing symptoms there, but look, it's just spread evenly across the field. It's not affecting the plant. You just see it in the odd leaf, but there's no effect on the plant. But then, if they're a BYDV tolerant variety, they will. It means they're tolerant, so it means they can get the disease, but they can tolerate the disease and it won't affect the growth. And that's probably typically what I am seeing out there. The crops have a little bit of it, but there's no effect on the plant at all.
And you see much down your neck of the woods?
Yeah, again, look, we're seeing it. That particular picture I've up there is probably the worst I've seen of it now in around, like, generally it's if it's up around 5% of of leaves affected, I'd say it's very much the outside of it. Like there's bits here and there, but look, as John said, it's more a leaf tipping that you'd often see maybe in late sown spring barley. It can look very bad. It stands out. The yellow against the deep green color of the crop can look particularly poor. But look, as regards what effect it's going to have on yield is probably minimal at this stage.
Yeah, no, I was talking to having to have lunch with Louise McNamara the other day, and like that, where that is in Oak Park there, she's going to bring me around some of the plots next week to show me through them. There's a great visual aspect to it there at the moment. It'll be there probably for another week or 10 days. So if anybody is local to Oak Park and they want to come down and have a look at it, just give us a shout or give Owen a shout. Owen, get on to me and we'll organise it. But it certainly is a very visual representation of the different varieties, both tolerant and conventional. And it's very, 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 very evident. Very good to see actually at the moment. Just moving on, guys, because the time doesn't be long slipping by on these webinars. But the final fungicide, John, you mentioned it there. It's going to be coming up in probably early May, and maybe on some of the faster development varieties, probably even, dare I say,
Earlier,
towards
yeah.
the last couple of days of April. So what are we looking at there? Are we still looking at Ramillaria as the main problem, or are we looking at Rinco and net blotch, do you think?
No, I'd say Ramillaria is the main problem. Like Rinco and net blotch, just not something I've seen much of. There's maybe a wee bit of net blotch there. I have seen no Rinco. So definitely we're looking at the Ramillaria in that case. And I suppose you're looking at maybe something like McPhair or Folpet or something like that to keep the crop clean. That's what you're aiming for.
Yeah, so I've
So
just put
just
up
keep.
the star rating here that we have in Oak Park from last year's trial work. So I hope you can see that there, okay? So you can see, as you say, Revistar and McPhair are probably the ones that give best coverage. But we see the likes of Falpet down there. It's only 1.5. Why are we putting that in on, do you think?
Yeah, well, sure. Look, at it's what you're looking at from a Ramillaria point of view to give extra efficacy to whatever you're putting with it. I suppose that's the key to it, and that would have been the Bravo of old, is where that's what's there to replace. It's not going to give the same. You don't have the star rating for Bravo there, but it was there to be a hell of a lot better on. And unfortunately, look, that's a thing of the past. So that's, it is from that Ramillaria control. We really we need to get in and we need to coat that flag leaf, and I suppose that's why. Now, oftentimes winter barley, maybe people have a tendency to leave the head come fully out and then go at it. But look, if we're waiting for that to happen, you're allowing Ramillaria come in, you're leaving that flag leaf unprotected. And I suppose that can lead to Ramillaria getting in on the flag leaf, and we need the flag leaf for grain fill. So I suppose it is important to get that timing correct.
Actually, it's
Okay.
a good point you made there, and I might just come back to that. That's actually some of the data that we would have shown before, where you made the point that if you leave the final spray to that kind of heads fully out and all that, that's that 59 stage, you can see it's actually costing you yield. And that's done over a couple of years. So it's a very good point you made in terms of that ons peeping, which is from the end of flag leaf up to the ons peeping there, which is 45. That's the timing that we need to get. Do you know?
Yeah. And would it
Sorry,
be
John, you
fair
were
to
going to come in
say,
and say something. Yeah.
yeah, I was just going to say, would it be fair to say, Shay, like just as you've pointed out there with the figures there on the screen, that if you're going in late with that fungicide is actually stressing the crop.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, and we were having this discussion last night as well, as I say, that basically we have to look at where the yield is coming from in barley. So it's coming from the stems and the leaves. So the assimilate or the energy in the plant is being shoved up, if you like, through the crop rather than wheat where it's coming from the top down. So we need to facilitate those leaves because the leaves at the bottom of the plant start to disintegrate very, very quickly and you start to lose the bit of energy that's in those crops. So you need to keep all the canopy as green for as long as you possibly can. So by leaving that fungicide as late as you possibly can, you potentially take out the bottom leaves or you let the bottom leaves go that bit earlier. So that's where you're losing your yield, you know. Any final comments, guys? I'm just shy, just conscious it's almost 8 o'clock already. Any final comments on barley for people out there, or if anybody wants to throw another comment in the chat or anything like that, feel free to do it. But any final comments on barley?
Just to build on the Ramillaria story, I suppose, like as you mentioned, Shay, Ramillaria is going to build from stress, and that stress can come from early on in the plant. And we did discuss there the potential stresses that we had this year with a lot of actors in a tank and going on and maybe not great weather conditions. So I suppose it is important, I suppose, to try and get that fungicide timing correct because we could be in a stressful situation this year.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Just bear with me here till I clear this screen and get this off my screen at the moment, so we can bring on the next videos on wheat. So yeah, so look, I suppose that's a quick update on barley. We'll bring forward here these winter wheat videos. So again, John, you might comment on what you're seeing above in this, if that's all right.
Yeah, so this is it's grey winter wheat, and the crop is clean. Like there's very little disease in it. I've walked it a few times, and I have not seen it has been treated for rust, but I have not seen rust in it. I suppose maybe the risk was because of rust being there last year, in the area that it was being treated for, especially for Graham. But it is very clean. And the third last leaf is 50% out at this stage, so like it's advancing very well. So it is. And it has received, as I said, the T0's Comet and Tebuconazole. So I suppose in the next few days, next week when the weather comes good, we're probably looking at our T1 now at this stage on the crop. As you see, the crop probably is a wee bit thin in itself, but that's just probably more the soil type than anything else. But as the crop itself is looking very, very clean.
We're looking at a crop of winter wheat that was drilled here on the 16th of October after winter oats. So the variety here is Champion, and the agronomy to date, it is currently sitting on 110 units of nitrogen, and it had received no fungicide application so far to date. So we know that Champion is particularly susceptible to yellow rust. So this crop was monitored all the way through the past few weeks for the presence of yellow rust, but no rust was found in the crop. So the decision was made not to apply a T0 fungicide application to this crop. From a weed control point of view, it did receive a pre-em last autumn, but this field is particularly bad for wild oats, so the decision was made to apply Manhattan to this crop for wild oat control and also to tidy up other weeds that may have been here at the time. Our next course of action for this crop is our T1 or our leaf tree fungicide application, and in order to do that we need to ensure that leaf tree is fully out in order to get full coverage of the chemistry on the leaf tree. So I've dissected our plant here to see where leaf tree is at. So if you look here from left to right, you can see here that our first leaf is leaf 4 and it is fully out. Our second is leaf 3, followed by leaf 2, and finally our flag leaf. So leaf 3 here is the leaf that we're most concerned about, because we need this fully out in order to get our fungicide application completed. And on this crop, we're looking at this leaf being approximately 50 to 60% out. So our T1 or leaf 3 fungicide application here will be coming up in the next week to 10 days.
Okay, I'm here in Oak Park in what we call the church field here in Oak Park at the back of the main house. You can see it here in the background. This is a field of Graham, sown in the middle of October last year. All the usual stuff done with it. Recently got brought up to about 160 kilos of nitrogen there now. So Yeah, as I say, this is Graham. One of the things we've been looking at in this crop here is to see is there any yellow rust in it. And so far, it doesn't seem to be too bad. A lot of tipping in it, but no lesions of yellow rust here. And I think that's pretty typical of a lot of grain crops out there. We have Champion here. For any of you familiar with Oak Park, here at the other side of the Met office here, and there is certainly yellow rust in that Champion. So just looking at where the growth development is here, we can see here where the pen is, that's leaf 4 is coming out in it here. So leaf 4 is not all the way out there yet. So just about ready for T0 or leaf 4 application. As you can see, leaf 3 is here, leaf 2 is here, and the flag leaf is still wrapped around the head there. You see it in the photograph there. It's still wrapped around the head there. So still a while away yet from our leaf 3 application. So probably going to be close to the end of the month before we need a leaf 3 application on this crop.
You share the sound is poor there.
Can you hear me, John?
That's better there now, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That kind of illustrates the difference that we're seeing between crops out there at the moment, because Eoin, your leaf 3 was much more advanced than mine there. So is there that much variation out there? Is it just what I'm seeing in Oak Park, do you think, Eoin?
No, there is a big variation between the different varieties. Like you're seeing Champion there, as seen in the video, is leaf 3 probably 50% out. Whereas if you look at Graham, which is probably the other big variety in my area, you're probably only maybe 20% out at most,
Yeah.
And also you had wheat sown at different times as well, I suppose, to take into account. Like the weather broke in October, maybe around the middle of the month, and there was a good bit of wheat went in that around that time, but there was also wheat was considerably earlier in that, back in September, so it's a good bit more advanced, I suppose, than other crops as well.
And I suppose talking to the guys in Cork there, they have a rebellion down there. That's leaf 3 is fully out in it now, so they'll be getting its leaf 3 application probably in the next couple of days, whenever it dries up, I suppose, in the next couple of days. So there is a lot of variation out there. And from that point of view, like we're saying here on the crops that we have shown here tonight, that pretty much everybody has their main spit of nitrogen on. Is that fair to say across all the country?
Yeah, it would be, I'd say, yeah. Like, I mean, split is out. I suppose maybe lads are probably looking maybe to their next split now shortly, but yeah, their main split is out now at this stage, and I suppose crops have responded well to it in the last few weeks. Like we can see the push on in crops. I mean, like I can see a big difference between the crop I showed there between this week and maybe a week ago. Like it has pushed on a lot. Like yeah.
Yeah. If you see and you notice on that crop there in Oak Park, a lot of scorching in it this year. And again, it was in the crop last night, as I say, in Carlow. The likes of Pacifica and these crop products were hard on crops. Have any of you seen that, or either of you seen that across the country?
Yeah, it definitely has. Again, I go back to them later, so on. Well, I won't say late, but mid-October, so on wheat crops. That the weather broke, and it was preems. It just didn't happen just due to the weather. And there was really no opportunity to get in until maybe a few weeks ago is all. So there was a good few crops that that it was the first herbicide was maybe Pacifica going on. Look, it has tipped it. You can see that tipping. You mentioned it there, Shane, that crop in Oak Park. When you look into fields, you can see that tipping on it. But again, look, it's part of it. It'll grow on out of it too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I see
same.
Dennis Dunn has put it into a question or a comment into the chat there that Equip is very advanced down there, and there's yellow rust starting to come in up here in water as well. Sorry, John, you were going to say, yeah?
I've forgotten now what I was going. I was just going to say on the Pacific, like I've seen
Tipping, yeah,
scorch tipping, but I've also seen maybe in a crop where it didn't tip it, there was no scorch, but you definitely could see where it pushed back the crop. To me, like
yeah.
the crop, like that acted as a very good growth regulator on the crop, and I don't know whether that's just a difference maybe of other things in the tank or maybe water rates that was used maybe at the time of spraying, especially maybe if there's a few things in the tank and maybe lower water rates.
Yeah, and I think something that I did see lately is where the addition of a herbicide and a PGR went in on wheat. Even on wheat now, you're seeing similar symptoms to what you can see there, the yellow tipping in the crops, and I think that's been quite evident across the country this year. Just to move on, because I suppose yellow rust is probably the topic of the season, I suppose, and with about 75% of the varieties in the country, a crop in the country planted with varieties that are susceptible to yellow rust. Is it much of an issue out there? You didn't see it in Champion on, and Champion is probably the one that we're most worried about.
Yeah, look, we were all on high alert from it after what happened last year, and even late into the season last year, we were seeing popping it up. So we were nearly inevitably waiting for it, and I suppose that's why the message around T zeros changed up until this year or last year. Even we wasn't even on the radar really, especially down where I'm operating. South Kildare, Laois. Maybe in North Kildare, the further northeast you go, it was probably a regular occurrence, but generally, though, there was an odd crop here and there. We could see yellow rust coming in, but an awful lot of the Champion, we monitored very closely, but it just wasn't showing up. And some people have gone with the T0, something like a Comet, or just to as a precaution. But there's some people now have no fungicide on wheat yet, and happy enough to proceed that way. Just careful monitoring, but really, we didn't really get the weather this spring that was really conducive to a big outbreak of yellow rust like we did last year, I suppose. So that was definitely a contributing factor to the low levels we saw.
Yeah, I think John made the point this time last year we were going around the short sleeves. We most certainly aren't doing that at the moment.
Yeah.
And Graham is often the one that is the canary in the coal mine. If you, as you say, you have Graham up there, John. No sign of any yellow rust in that either.
No, I haven't seen sign of yellow rust in Graham. No, the crops are clean for rust. Like there's very little out there. I suppose maybe I know a lot of crops probably have got sprayed for rust at this stage. Maybe it's precautionary because of last year, but definitely no sign of rust even in crops that's unsprayed. I'd one field there was a bit of rust in it, all right, but it was a field where there was grass last year and the grass had rust. So like it had a lot, but in general crops are very clean at the minute. Like as I say, even
Yeah,
there's a few crops up here without didn't get spray and there's no sign
yeah.
of any rust.
And just on, you mentioned Owen about the guys going in with the likes of Comet. I suppose you wouldn't put in Comet on your own from the resistance point of view and that the kind of frac guidelines. What are guys typically putting with it, do you think?
Yeah, generally, you're looking at something maybe just to start off your septoria control really, and you are limited to the amount of fall pitch you can use there in any given go, in any given season. So some sulfur based product was generally always going in, something like a Thyropon or something like that. And if you were really concerned concerned with rust, the Tepicor then was going with it as well, like just to be on the safe side if you did see rust in the crop.
Yeah, so that, I suppose the point there being is that Teagasc is good at knockdown, right? In
Mm.
saying that, and the Comet then is the preventative element of it. So that's why the combination is there. But I think you're right. I've seen a lot of thiopron or vertipin going on out with the likes of Comet, and it is certainly giving you that little bit of septoria control. So I suppose rolling on then, guys. 'Cause, I mean, we talked about PGRs on barley, and I suppose it'll be something similar on wheat. But rolling on to that leaf 3 application, um, is septoria going to be the main focus? Do you think, or is yellow rust still possibly going to rear its head? Do you think?
Well, look, in a champion variety, we can't rule out yellow rust really, but as of today, you'd say that septoria is definitely going to be the main issue we're going to see. Look, from a septoria pressure point of view, looking at crops, there's a good bit of Dawson there around the tie the direction there as well, and leaf 4 is still relatively clean, so which is good to see. Champion we know is going to be fairly good on Septoria all the time, so it's fairly clean as well. So we are in a good place, but there's nothing to say that it mightn't rear its head if temperatures increase too. Like,
Yeah, so typically on your on that champion that you have in Stradbally, you're probably talking, when are you thinking of going on that? Like it's what, 50% out, is it?
yeah. So I suppose if we're trying to predict when our leaf is going to be fully emerged, it comes down to the degree days. So we know that it takes 120 degree days for our leaf to be formed in wheat. Okay, so if we were getting an average temperature of about 10 degrees between day and night, we know that it'll take about 12 days then for a leaf to be fully emerged. I just had a glance there at the average temperatures for the past week there, and we're kind of either side of the 10 degrees really when it comes to the average temperature. So realistically, like if we're 50% out at the minute, and if temperatures are kind of stay on that or maybe increase a bit, we're probably looking at And our leaf 3 fungicide application in 6-7 days time, maybe a week time, something like that is where we are on a champion. But look, as you said, I think the crop you had in Oak Park, leaf 3 was only barely emerging, if even coming out at all. So that'll be a good bit longer. You could be looking up on 2 weeks for a crop like that.
Yeah. And John, if I come to you there on that, right? So when I've thrown up the fungicide table there, or the fungicide scorecard there that Stephen has developed. So what are you thinking in terms of your Leaf 3 application, your T1 application?
I suppose up this way, like crops are clean, you mean so like rust at the minute is not an issue. Septoria probably is there's a small little bit there maybe on the older dying off leaves, but it's not an issue as Owen said, leaf four is clean. So I'd be looking at probably the likes of the Revistar type product, maybe at this stage at the T1. And
And you're mixing that with,
I'd be mixing that then with I'd be probably mixing that then with Falpit then as well.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's interesting because I've heard different debates about whichever product, whether you go Univoc first or Revistar first or whatever it happens to be. I mean, looking at what you're seeing there, or the Astra, we shouldn't forget about this because it is an option too. The other one, I suppose, that people are seeing out there is the Jessica One Gitana mix. Any comment on that, Owen?
Yeah, look, I think ideally you need to keep your best chemistry for the flag leaf spray because your flag leaf, as we know in wheat, is going to contribute the most to yield out of any of the leaves. But in saying that, if you have a crop and there's a lot of septoria building up, and you're going to have a job on your hands to try and keep it at bay, then you have no option but to go with your good chemistry first. But we'd be hopeful that the majority of crops this year that something like your Revistar there, your Ascar first will be good enough to keep you going, and then maybe go the Univoc then after. From a rate point of view, possibly maybe an 80% rate might get you out as well, but time will tell on that next week when we see what happens.
And I suppose the key thing, and you saw it, you showed it there, getting that leaf T3 timing is critical. So, is it difficult to split out those leaves? And I know you did a course here on the two of you did a course in NACE on Tuesday. Do you think is it easy for guys to go and dissect those leaves? Do you think?
It's not overly easy when there's gale blowing in your face, but if you bring it back to the car, or the jeep or something, yeah, you'll get them out all right. Like, but it is very important, because you might pull up a plant, and if you see a leaf looking at you, the last leaf coming out, you might think it is the one that you're after, but it might necessarily be. So you do have to work backwards and see which leaf you have. And look, and we had a discussion group meeting there yesterday morning. We were only looking at it there, and you're looking at Dawson and you can see where the leaf is curled up. And if you apply the spray to a leaf that's not fully laid out, that's slightly curled up, so the droplet is going to run through that leaf and you're not going to get that coverage. I suppose that leads to the unprotected leaf where the septoria can take hold. So look, it's vitally important to try and get the leaf fully emerged.
Yeah.
Just one thing, just
And
on
go on, John. Yeah.
yeah, just one thing, just on the course there that we done the other day. Like I just found maybe just if lads are at it, I just found the practice was probably kind of what made the key for lads when they're unrolling those leaves. So stick at it. I mean, because you could see from the start to the finish when lads had done 5 or 6 plants, they improved on what they're doing and getting that leaf out. So just if you're out to the field, do you mean don't just do one or two, like do a number of plants, and then look, you will improve at it as you do it.
There's another course I believe on next Tuesday, is it?
Yeah, next Tuesday in Port another course looking at growth stages. So there's still a few places left on that course. So if anyone's interested, send me a text or give me a call there anyway.
Yeah, so I think it's well worth doing, getting practice in and seeing what you can do. It's a bit of crack as well, apart from anything else. I suppose the overall program then, guys in wheat. So you're looking at probably either of the Univoc, the Questar products, or the Jessica One products. Do you mix them, or can you alternate them, or are they the same product? John, and throw that one to you. Are they the same, more or less, or is there any restrictions on them?
There is restrictions there, Shay. Like so, like it's no, so you can't you have to be careful with whatever you start with. Like yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
just
they're
forgot
basically the same seed.
what.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Go on, yeah.
Shay, go ahead there. Sorry, yeah.
So they're basically the same product as such, the same active ingredient. So
Yeah,
you can only use one of them each way.
you can
But
only use
I
them.
suppose for the most, go on, yeah.
No, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
But am I right in saying for the most part, people will either use one of the top three products that you're looking at there, and alternate it with the other one,
Yeah,
or
I'd
one of
say
the other
so.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose the final one then, probably something like a Prosaro, Pretendo, something like that is probably where guys are thinking, is it?
Probably would be, yeah, something simple like, yeah.
Yeah. Going to throw a complete curveball at you now while I have you there. I'm hearing guys talking about maybe a Revistar, splitting that Revistar T1s, T1s and a halves. Have you come across anything like that?
I haven't actually shared no, but maybe as we get into another week or two, maybe we'll hear more on that. Yeah, but I don't think that's a runner.
Have you heard anything about that on
Yeah.
down your neck of the woods?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is practice in
Yeah.
some quarters, all right. But look at
Mm,
um, probably not best advised, really.
Mm.
I think it all comes back to timing. Getting your timings correct and getting your leaves protected. That's the main key to try and to a good fungicide program in wheat.
Yeah. Look, guys, that's good. I suppose good stuff on the winter cereal crops. Just going to change base a little bit here for on spring crops because we know, look, it's been a challenge in spring to get anything done. What way is work in, I suppose, down south on in your area? You're probably a lot more down work done down at high direction, a lot of sowing done, and a lot of people jealous of what's going on around the tie, I suppose, is there?
Yeah, sure. Look around the tie, I suppose. Look, yeah, you're very free draining soil, as we know. But also combined with that, as we know, the malt and barley contracts were going to be reduced as far back as last September, October. So with the good autumn last autumn, people took the opportunity to put in more winter crops. So probably the area of spring crop to go in was probably that bit less, and combined with the drier soils means that a lot of it is in. Bar a few peas have to go in here and there, but if you look at leash direction, I suppose down south leash especially where you have them heavier soils. They're just finding it hard to get them to dry out. And really, there's probably about 40% of the spring crop still to go in down that neck of the woods because it just needs time to soak, and that's about the size of it really.
Yeah, same up around you, John. Heavier soils up North Kildare. What's the story up there?
Yeah, I suppose progress is slower up until there. Like guys are still sowing. I'd say maybe it might be 50% through on sowing the spring barley at the most. Like I am finding the guys are just saying ground is still wet. It's slow to dry out. I mean, and it's just taking its toll. So it's just going to be another while before lads get all their crops in the ground. Like there's even some fields and lads will probably still have the decision to make as to what they're going to do with the field. I mean,
Yeah,
so
like I was
yeah.
saying to you before we started the meeting, I got a text from a guy this morning who is going sowing beans. Still at this stage, he has the beans in stock. Would you still advise guys to throw beans in at this stage, or has it just gone way too late now?
Personally, for the beans, yeah, I think it's just gone way too late now at this stage. Like, I mean, if it was the start of the month, maybe, but at this stage now, I think it's gone way too late.
Again, I'm going to throw a curveball here. We haven't discussed one, but if you're going to with very late spring barley, I mean, the margins on that probably aren't brilliant. Are you better off to claim the protein payment?
But from that point of view, Shay, I was afraid to say it, but like from that point of view, maybe that is a better option from that side. Like, if just from the crop side, probably it's too late. But if it's just a protein payment, possibly you might be right on that. Like, I mean, payments are good, and I think we'll probably be looking at a decent payment again this year.
But
But
I
it's fair
suppose
to
on the
say you
problem
would,
is, go
yeah.
on, yeah,
But
go
it's
on,
fair to
say
say,
go.
like you must have a crop, like you must have a combinable crop there too. Like, I mean, so
Yeah, and that's the point I was going to ask on. I mean, 2 years ago we saw all sorts of problems with late planted beans, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Even in yeah, go back to 24. Even if you remember, October came like a nearly like a summer month that year. But even at that, we could not get the moistures nearly below 30 in a lot of cases. And there's people pulling combines apart and power washing stuff out of them and stuff. So we don't want to be there either, So yeah, it's just be mindful of that.
Yeah. So probably from now on, it's going to be the likes of spring barley still. Maybe, if, as you say, on a few peas might go in around the higher places like that, and maybe some fodder beet. But for most people that are sowing spring barley over the next week, is there any change that you do in terms of seed rates or compound fertilizers or nitrogen at this stage over the next 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah, so look at first, I suppose, on seed rate. Like you're going to have a crop now that's going to race through the growth stages because it's a crop going to be going into a seedbed that's going to be warming up that bit quicker. So we know in spring barley you're going to need at least 3 to 4 shoots per plant in order to get where we want for target yield. Now, look, the problem is now, are you going to get that number of tillers coming off a plant if it's just raced through the row stages and goes into goes into stem extension that bit quicker than we wanted. So from that, all taking that into account, more seed in the seedbed would mean more plants. And even if they don't tiller, at least you have the plants there that are going to, put up the shoots and try and get towards our 1,000 shoots come harvest time. Um, on the nitrogen point of view, generally we're in around maybe 30% of our total nitrogen in the seedbed. String barley at sowing. There might be a case to up that a bit as well, especially if we're heading in now to a dry period as well. You kind of want nitrogen to get into that crop because it is going to be growing quickly. So an extra bit of nitrogen in the seedbed might be no harm.
Yeah, and I used to see that years ago, for when I used to be in North Dublin. If they were drilling now, the seedbed could dry out very, very quickly and get
Yeah.
very, very hard. And as you said, that nitrogen going onto the ground mightn't get taken up for weeks and that. You actually made an interesting point earlier on, actually, and maybe it's a change that people might be able to use this year. Is liquid nitrogen an option there? And that you were saying it's quite a bit, well, it's relatively good value if there's a good value in fertilizer at the moment, but it's actually possibly good value.
Yeah, so like typically it was always trading more or less the same as what um say a can or a bag urea or whatever it might be, per unit of nitrogen, it was always maybe trading around the same. But there definitely seems to be a difference in the price of it since the war happened. The price of Sulcan has rocketed up and maybe the soil applied liquid nitrogen hasn't kind of followed it up at the same pace. So there is good value. Now I know, look, a lot of tillage farmers might have their business done in relation to fertilizer already, so maybe it's the point is a bit null and void. But definitely, I'm seeing a lot of farmers in my area. Maybe they haven't gone the full way of using liquid nitrogen, but there definitely is a good bit of talk about it, and people are interested in it. And I suppose if there's good difference in prices and value to add, that might see the popularity rise even more.
Yeah, and John, I'm not sure. Have you any experience of guys using it, or is there much difference, especially on the likes of spring barley? Have you any experience of it?
I've experienced it of guys using it. Like some guys think maybe they are getting more out of it, but technically, I suppose there shouldn't be much different between that and the bags and bag fertilizer. Like it's still the same thing, but just I suppose it's easy to use. It's very accurate to use, and maybe there is savings there, maybe on the accuracy of it, and you're not putting fertilizer up in the heads like if you're going out around, with a spreader versus it. Like I mean, so from them point of views, like there's probably savings there as well, like on that accuracy. And I suppose it's just maybe a word of caution. It's
Accuracy, I
just
think.
maybe,
Yeah,
yeah,
accuracy is the exact word I was thinking of
yeah,
because was it yesterday, the day before? I can't remember which day it was. I went into a field and you could see where it wasn't that terribly accurately applied, and you could see scorch and you could see overlaps and
yeah.
stuff like that. So if do you really need GPS? Do you need RTK to apply? Do you think?
Yeah, you do. Like if you overlap at all, you're going to scorch. Like I mean, I remember seeing a few years ago where he was off a little bit, and it wasn't much, but maybe it was about a foot of an overlap, and but you could see that foot of a scorch the whole way up the field.
Yeah, yeah. So look, there are, it's like everything. It's not. There are pros and cons to it. So there is certainly advantages to it, as Owen says this year, rightly in terms of price. There certainly is seems to be um, a price difference there between it and can. And look at, if guys still have nitrogen to go and to go onto crops, and they're set up for it, I suppose is the other thing. Then definitely it's a live option. I'm just conscious, lads, it's 25 past 8, and I just want to show a quick video here, which is a prelude to what we're going to be doing over the crop walks over the next week. Your crop walk, Owen, is next week, isn't it?
Yeah, so crop walking in Ty in Fennon's farm there, just outside the Ty, next Thursday at 7. So I suppose,
Yeah.
yeah, we're going to show something on wild oats here. So as VJ you'll see in the video is extremely concerned with build up of resistance to wild oats. So we're going to do the usual crop agronomy type stuff, Shay, but we're hoping to do a demonstration on the evening as well on looking at forward speed, sprayer forward speed, in relation to where droplets are landing for wild oak control and weed control in general, and also then different types of nozzles. So it's all about looking at coverage and trying to get good coverage for wild oak control to, I suppose, to prevent the buildup of resistance cases that we're seeing coming through.
Yeah, look, the sound on this unfortunately is not brilliant. Hopefully you'll be able to make it out, but I think the pictures, as they say, speak 1,000 words in this, so hopefully you'll be able to see this. The full video, by the way, is on the Teagasc YouTube channel, so if you go into Teagasc YouTube, you'll pick up the full video on this, and it might play better on your computer than it is coming through this medium here. So I'll show you this video here and it'll give you a flavour for what VJ is doing in the glasshouse.
49 suspect population. The population came mainly from Wexford, Carlow, Kilkenny, Wicklow, Laois, and the Meath and Dublin region. About 80% of the samples came from continuous barley fields. All population were grown in glasshouse in replicated trials. We sprayed them at the recommended label rates when plants were at 3 to 4 leaf stage. We tested 4 ACKs herbicides, the likes of Axial, Falcon, Stratus, and Centurion Max. We also tested 2 ALS herbicides, the likes of Pacifica and Broadway. And Broadway was applied at 2 rates, 200 grams per hectare, the recommended label rate used in spring, and 265 grams per hectare, the recommended label rate in winter wheat. The results I'm going to show now are 28 days post-spray. So first, these are untreated controls. These plants did not receive any herbicide treatment. Okay. These are the plants. These are all the 49 populations that were tested with Axial at recommended label rate. As you can see, we see some growth checking effect, but it did not control the population. So most of the population are resistant. What's more important is that in some population, we see a mix of dead and surviving plants. The product has hit the plant, but they have recovered. Okay, this shows that the resistance is still evolving, and if the current management do not change, the population will move towards full resistance. Okay, the same 49 population were tested with the likes of Falcon, and you can see again a very little response in many of these populations. But we also see some of the population that are totally sensitive. Then we see some of the mixed population, as you can see here, the alive and dead plants both within and between the replicates. Okay. Again, if the current management do not change, these population will move towards full resistance. Okay. So the same 49 population that tested with the recommended label rate of Stratus Ultra compared to Axial and Falcon, you could see fewer population survived, and many of the population, you could see that Stratus Ultra was very effective. Okay, the same 49 population that tested with the Centurion Max, as you can see from here, Centurion Max were very effective in almost all the population except one. So this population was showing resistance to Centurion Max. I suppose wild oats being an exoploid and self-pollinating mutation that cause resistance to the likes of Axial, Falcon, or Stratus may not necessarily affect Centurion Max. However, as you can see here, we can have some exceptions. 49.
Sorry, and I suppose that's a kind of worrying sort of trend that we're seeing across the country. And you can see there by the map earlier on at the start of the video, it's not just in one area. Certainly there's quite a bit of it coming from Wexford in continuous spring barley ground, predominantly malting barley ground. So it is something, I suppose, that we are getting very, very exercised about. So as you say, Eoin, we're going to try and focus on that next week. And John, when we're doing the one up in the North Kildare, we still have to find a venue for it yet. But when we're doing that one, we'll do something similar up there for the guys up there as well. But certainly I think it is a growing issue out there. It's one that VJ is particularly concerned about. And look, I suppose it's something that, unlike the likes of blackgrass or Italian ryegrass, we all have a field with wild oats in it. So it's potentially a problem on everybody's farm, not just a few farmers, unfortunately, who have blackgrass or Italian ryegrass and so on and so forth. So that's something I suppose people can, well, if you want to say, look forward to next week. Certainly those crop walks will address that, but also the other issues that are out there on the ground at the moment. So look, guys, it's 8:30. We said we'd keep you for an hour. We're not going to drag this out any longer. Just want to say thanks to both Eoin and John who put this together for you. If you want any more like this, please get on to the guys. We can run more events like this. If you think that they're benefit to them, text them. If you think you want more, or WhatsApp them, and we can see we can put on more for you if you think it's useful. So look, thanks a million. We'll put this recording up. The guys will have the recording of it. They'll send it out on WhatsApp. It'll be up on the Teagasc YouTube channel. So look, hopefully we see you all again soon, and best luck over the next couple of weeks. Thanks, lads.
Very good.